Welcome to the No Budget Indie Filmcast, where we dip into the independent film universe to highlight those little films that you might not have heard about elsewhere. We either agree with our panel, or will our panel agree with each other? Tune in to find out. I am Milo Dennison, and with me, as always, are my excellent co-hosts Claire Milan
Hello.
and Cathal Feeney.
Hello.
All right, Cathal, what's on the agenda this week?
This week we are watching a film called Nanook of the North. It's a documentary feature film from 1922, and it's directed by a Robert J. Flaherty. So it's obviously it's made in 1922, and it spends a year following an Inuit by the name of Nanook and his family, who live in the Arctic Circle. Now, I read somewhere this is actually the first documentary film ever made. Maybe. No? Okay.
No, I'm shaking my head. No, yep, nope. It wasn't. Though it's often considered to be the first documentary film. No.
It's considered to be, But that's why, so I'm open to correction. Now, obviously, it's a silent film, and there isn't even any narration, for instance, which I suppose technically it could have been. But saying that, it's a brilliant film and gives a fascinating insight into a culture that was already disappearing. Like it's not a film you can make today, for instance. There are a lot of memorable scenes in it, such as the walrus hunt and the building of the igloo. And there's also a surprisingly large amount of humor in it, which I wasn't expecting. Like that opening scene with the kayak is just hilarious, I thought. And anything to do with the children are very funny too. I guess it must have been challenging to make, working in a harsh environment with like kind of old equipment. And I read somewhere about that there were accusations that some of the scenes were staged. Now, whether you accept that or not, it's still a very authentic film, and I think it's an important film, to be able to record and document scenes of a dying culture like that. I think it's just amazing, and its significance and value will only increase with time. It's just a real treat to watch.
Yeah, it was fascinating. It was kind of interesting because I heard about this film, and then when we chose it, I thought, oh, it's a kind of a short film. I sat down earlier to watch it, like, oh God, it's a feature. And then I saw it was made in 1922, and I'm really big into silent films, at the moment. And I just thought to have this, like, this was made in 1922. I'm really blown away by it. And I read the guy who made it, he was, I think the year before or something, he was out filming the Inuit, and he was editing, and he had a cigarette, and all his stuff, most of his footage went up in flames. But he went back and then followed this guy, and actually his name isn't Nanook in real life. What does Nanook means? Something
hunter or something. Yeah, it means something like hunter or something like that. I don't remember, but it does mean something.
But it's not his real name, and his wives weren't his real wives. So
that might actually not be true. So that's one of those legends around it, that they weren't his wives and kids. Okay. But there's no real proof one way or the other. So they might actually be. Well, one of them wasn't his wife, for sure. So the rumor is that the other one also wasn't his wife, but that's actually might not be true. That he actually might be his wife. She might be his wife.
And it said at the very start of the film that he died 2 years later from starvation. But then there's rumors that he actually died of tuberculosis. So in the igloo. And the igloo, because they were wondering how they'd film inside an igloo, because it's very small. So that was staged. They only built half an igloo and filmed outside. And then the gramophone scene with the white man, that was all staged as well, because Nanook, he knew what a gramophone was beforehand. And a lot of they started wearing a lot of Western clothes, and he used rifles to hunt. A lot of it was very staged, but just what he captured in it the look of the main guy, and he's just the humor. I love that scene with the boat. It was so comedic, and it was at the very start. And when there's keeps being children and wives and everything, how is that possible? And some parts were very hard to watch, with the killing of animals, and the walrus scene. But and then he the fact he ate the meat raw like that, because he's obviously so used to it. There was some lovely scene, and even when they met the white man, the children they were eating lard and biscuits, and then one of them had a stomach ache, and he gave castor oil to the child. So that was kind of a lovely little scene. And then I loved one scene as well where they built little snow animals. I think they're little polar bears, and the father was teaching the son to hunt, with a little bow and arrow. It was so cute, but there was a lot of controversy over it as well. And because they were kind of thinking, oh, they're portraying them as if they're animals, and there was a lot of controversy in how staged it was. But there is a lot of rumors about it. But I'm so curious, how do they film this? I don't know. Where were the filmmakers staying? Where were they? How did they survive if it was as cold as it looked? So
yeah.
it's
Well, living out there with them. But the thing with all the controversy around it is, it was controversial at the time, and they still talk about it now. But now this type of filmmaking, we don't question it, right? You watch the Tiger King, or you watch, or we just watched The Lost Pirate Kingdom, a series on Netflix, right? And it has all these reenactments in it. And we don't question that anymore in regards to documentaries. We just accept it. And that's really what this is that it's reenactments trying to show the life. So it wasn't that long before this film was made that the Inuit were living this type of a lifestyle. And so he's trying to document that lifestyle as it was prior to modernizing the rifles, building wood houses and all that kind of stuff. So that controversy doesn't really bother me, because it is narrative documentary, which we accept now as being completely normal. We don't question it when we see it anymore.
And also, like, they did those things. Like, I mean, obviously they were transitioning from the old way of life to the new way of life. He did actually hunt the walrus, and he did actually, build the igloo. So it was real in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. He's documenting this life as it was, and they they knew how to hunt the walrus by spear, clearly, from having done it.
It's crazy, and just to think back then how new this kind of reenactment must have been. It wasn't like a drama. Apparently they didn't distinguish between documentaries and films back then, normal films. It was just films. But the fact this new technique of reenactment must have been so new back then, 1922. As you said, look at the Tiger King. Yeah, look at all these. They are reenacted.
I think a lot of these accusations, it's maybe gone a little bit overboard. I mean, it's as I said, I think it is still a very authentic film and a very authentic depiction.
I agree. And the accusations are kind of implying that he was somehow taking advantage of Nanook or whatever his real name is, and that kind of stuff. I don't think he was. I think he was really trying to tell the story of this life and kind of romanticizing it, because you could even end the film and you'd be like, God, they lived a hard life, but there's also something very simple about it, which kind of made it kind of nice in some ways, like the thing with the kids shooting the little snow animals and that kind of stuff, and it's hard but also simple compared to our modern lives, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. And they seem so happy. Like, that's the one thing. They all seem genuinely happy, like from their simple lifestyle. And you could imagine as well, they must have went days without eating sometimes. And you can do it. There's a snowstorm, and it looked like they were getting caught out in it, and just the cold, And then we saw them building the igloo. That was fascinating. And then they put kind of a reflector. They built a little window, which is a see-through piece of ice, and then they put a reflector up on top of it for the sun to come in. So I know everyone knows igloos, but I never knew that was on an igloo. Yeah. So that was a whole new thing.
Well,
just
and it's amazing to
seeing-
think about it, because if they dropped any of us out in the Arctic, we'd be dead, right? So
Yeah.
say what you will about them being simplistic or whatever, he could survive and build his own igloo
Yeah, they
and
have to
put a
survive.
window in
Yeah.
it, like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
I love
And then the puppies, they put another igloo for all the puppies.
Yeah, a little puppy igloo.
That was just amazing. And the dogs then,
Mhm.
it was, but there was just, it really, just to think 1922 that this was made in is
100 years ago. Yeah.
100 years ago.
Just under 100 years ago. Crazy.
And the fact he captured this from a cinematography point of view, it really blew my mind. Like the setup of it, because they would have been fairly new back then.
300-pound camera, I think, is what they were. I don't remember. I don't know the exactly, but it was
Yeah, like the one
over
here in
300
my picture.
Yeah, in your
No,
picture,
it
yeah,
must
those
have
are-
been crazy. And he had certain, I don't know exactly how they did it, but he had some printing plates or something, so he
Yeah.
could show the Nanook what he was doing. He's like, oh, this is, because he learned his lesson the first time. So it just shows you he must have been devastated when his previous footage went up in flames. But if that
Yeah.
didn't happen, he wouldn't have got this. And we probably wouldn't have been talking about maybe 100 years later.
Mhm.
It's really incredible.
It did give him maybe an inspiration, or give him an idea of how he would actually make a better film, perhaps.
Yeah,
One thing about
exactly.
Probably because I think the original film was just documenting like Inuits in general, whereas with this, he decided to focus on a specific family.
Yeah. I think he said that. He said the first footage was like a travel log, and this was actually a person and one family. But it just shows you at absolute horror and failure of his working up in flames. And back then, to get to the Arctic would have been fairly hard,
And what a talent, because the thing is, he wasn't a filmmaker,
Yeah.
prior to this, really. He was, I think he worked for the Hudson Bay Company or something like he was a land surveyor.
Yeah.
To learn kind of filmmaking on the fly is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I think I could be wrong with something like that.
It's just incredible, isn't it?
It was impressive. Yeah, it's a great film. This is the second time I've seen it. In a intro to film class, we actually watched it and analyzed the hell out of it. So it was kind of a fun choice. Officially the oldest film that we've watched on No Budget now.
Okay.
For our reviews.
What were you going to say? But like you were saying, there was documentary films made before this?
Yeah, there was one on Shackleton, if I remember correctly. And I think there was another one. So this is probably maybe within the first 5 or, some very early documentaries. And it just kind of gets to be famous because it's the longest lasting one. Yeah, I'm sure we could Google it and find out for sure. But I do know for sure it wasn't the first.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I sort of qualified my.
Yeah.
I read,
Yeah. I couldn't tell you what the first one actually was. I don't remember.
All right.
So sure. Okay. Claire, you want to go first? Do you want me to do it?
Yeah. I just think thank you so much, Carl, for bringing my attention to the film, because I remember heard about it years back and sitting down to watch it. I was blown away. 1922, the cinematography, the story he captured. It's a 5-star film for me. It really is. You can't really fault it. It's blew me away.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't care about the controversy around it. It's still telling a story, which I find to be authentic enough to work. And the fact that it's lasted so long, I would love to make a film that people are discussing 100 years from now. I mean, that'd be fantastic. So 5-star for me as well.
Well, yeah, this is going to be a slam dunk. This is a film everybody should watch on our channel. Link below.
Yep.
Although seriously, just Google it, watch it. You won't be disappointed. 5-star.
There you have it. No Budget Filmcast listeners, we enjoyed this film. We're giving it 5 stars. We think you should watch it. As Cathal mentioned, we'll throw the link into the notes so you can have a viewing. And we hope you got something out of it. And we'll see you next time. That's a wrap.
Goodbye.
Bye.